This would be the decisive battle of the campaign. Either Rome would win, or Boudica would get her revenge and take back Britain. The Britons made the first move, and with an almighty roar, the horde took up their weapons and charged at the Romans. The very first battle of Britain had begun. This time, the Romans knew what they were facing. They would not crack under the British assault, as the men of the 9th Legion had done. Now they would do what they did best: hold their nerve, be disciplined, and follow their drill to the letter. When the British came within 40 yards, the legionaries flung a volley of pila into the front ranks. These light spears were specifically designed to disrupt the charge of cavalry or infantry. The heavy metal heads lodged in the shields and weighed down the front ranks. The aim was to kill the enemy or trip them up. Since many of the Britons were lightly armed or even naked, this organized volley was devastating. Unluckily for them, Roman legionaries always carried 2 pila. Another organized volley turned the howling charge into a screaming slaughter. But still the Britons surged forward. Till now they had beaten every army the Romans had sent against them and destroyed their greatest city. They were determined to win this final battle. 61 AD. Boudica, queen of the Iceni, is fighting to end the Roman occupation of Britain. The Britons sent in wave after wave of warriors. Boudica watched the battle from her chariot. She could see this was a very different Roman force from the 9th Legion that she had smashed earlier in the year.
It's an army that's used to fighting, very experienced, and under a very capable commander.
These Romans had picked a good spot for battle. They were standing their ground. Her favorite technique of intimidating the enemy was not working against this veteran army. Her army was much larger, but it was being funneled into the narrow end of the battlefield. She could not outflank the Romans.
All of the evidence appears to be that she was an extremely capable woman, a fighter, and she would have been in the battle and probably would have been in the thick of things.
The discipline of the legions stopped the British charge in its tracks. Now Paulinus ordered the Roman troops forward.
Fairly familiar Roman shock tactics. You lead with the javelin, and then as the enemy is approaching you, slowed down almost to a walk, you run straight into them. You hit them very hard.
At the same time, the Roman cavalry plowed into the disorganized horde. There was chaos in the ranks.
The Britons had had much longer swords, and they would have really needed space to use these to effect. They had absolutely fantastic courage, but really they couldn't deploy, they couldn't utilize their courage, they couldn't utilize the fighting tactics for which they were best suited. Everything was on the side of the Romans.
In the press of battle, with no proper leadership to drive them on, many Britons decided to cut and run, and live to fight another day. But now their earlier arrogance was working against them. Their huge baggage train blocked the way. The Britons had cut off their line of retreat with their own wagons. Now the wives and children of Britons, so confident of victory, found themselves in the middle of a massacre. Their menfolk ran from the battle toward them, only to find the spaces between the wagons had become choke points. There was no escape. They had abandoned what little battle order they had, and now they were being hacked down.
The Roman legionary fought with the gladius, the short stabbing sword, and stab upwards alongside the shield with the right hand into the stomach area of the enemy.
Bloodlust drove the Romans on. They'd come to the battlefield tired and outnumbered. Now their enemy was cornered and confused. The Romans showed no mercy.
Tacitus says that they just saw red. It was a sort of battle haze. And having pushed the British warriors back onto their own wagon line, that they just cut down the draft animals, cut down the women and children, spared absolutely nothing.
They killed combatants and non-combatants alike. The Britons were caught between Roman steel and a barricade of their own creation, a crescent of chariots where their families had been watching, hoping to see a British victory. Now they too lay dead at the feet of the Roman troops. The death toll, though no doubt exaggerated in Rome's favor, reflects the incredible carnage done that day. It was claimed that Rome lost only 400 men to 80,000 Britons.
I think it is likely that it was so. It would be very rash to say that 80,000 is anything like an accurate number, but I think it will have run into thousands. And as for the Roman losses, I think that 400 is probably the number of people who actually perished and fell on the battlefield.
Whatever the figure, Rome had won a devastating and decisive victory. When Postumius, who had been afraid to help Paulinus, got word of the Roman victory, he was so overcome with shame that he committed suicide. Boudica raced from the battlefield. Capture would have meant being dragged back to Rome in chains, torture, and then execution. The Romans followed in hot pursuit. But before they could reach her, Boudica took poison and died.
There are two stories about the fate of Boudica. One is that she fell ill and died. The other is that she took poison. The simple answer is we don't know. There is an urban myth that she is buried under platform 9 at King's Cross railway station in London, but there's absolutely no evidence to support that story.
Boudica's death marks the end of effective resistance to Roman rule by the Britons. Though pockets of revolt remained, it was clear the Britons had been conquered by Rome and would remain under Roman rule for nearly 400 years.
Rome hit them very, very hard. Boudica's actual legacy for Roman Britain really was Britain really worth all this? But the answer came back quite quickly thereafter. Yes, it was.
Today, a statue of Boudica, the warrior queen, stands on the banks of the Thames. The woman who fought against the might of Rome remains an enduring symbol of defiance and a champion for her nation.